today we're going to be moving on to a new topic, which is the coming of democracy to South Africa and coming to terms with the past. Okay? So we are going to look at the road to democracy. But before it's a road to democracy, re tshwanetse re tlhaloganye gore ke eng e leadileng to go nne le dipoledisano tsa democracy. Okay? Now remember, before South Africa moved to what it is today, in apartheid from the year 1948 again. So in 1948, the National Party was the controlling or the ruling party of South Africa. It implemented policies that apartheid, which included segregation of the blacks and the whites. So the blacks and the whites were not allowed to share facilities. Again, but then as time went on, there was responses both internally and international. But what led to the discussion or what led to the coming of democracy was the international response that put pressure on the then leader of the National Party to start negotiations or to start preparations for democracy, a democratic South Africa. Now the international response that led to the negotiations that we are going to discuss under the coming of democracy to South Africa, they include boycotts, disinvestment, and sanctions. Again, so with the boycotts, there were sport boycotts, cultural boycotts, academic boycotts, and also the consumer boycotts. Then came the disinvestment, where companies like Pepsi, Apple Mobiles, they started pulling out of the country. Now that was hurting the economy of South Africa. But what initially led to P.W. Botha reforming his policies to apartheid were the sanctions. Because ultimately, because of these sanctions, the rent ya drop from 52 cents to 34 cents to the dollar. Okay? So now, I want us to focus on the smart board. Okay? This is now where we introduce our topic. But before we go through this, I'm going to give you this handout. You're not going to go through them next. You just pass on to the next and we move next. You take 2 and pass to the next. 2 pass to the next. So everyone should have 2 handouts, which start with 2 February 1990 to 27 April 1994. Now the coming of democracy,
I wish to focus the spotlight.
We are going to start off by watching this video. Now you pay attention
On the process of negotiation and relationship. The key to reconciliation, peace, and the new and just dispensation. Today, I'm able to announce far-reaching decisions in this regard. The prohibition of the African National Congress, the Pan-Africanist Congress, South African Communist Party, and a number of subsidiary organizations is being rescinded. People serving prison sentences merely because they were members of one of these organizations, or because they committed another offense which was merely an offense because a prohibition of one of the organizations was enforced, will be identified and released. Prisoners who have been sentenced for other offenses such as murder, terrorism, and arson are not affected by this. The media emergency regulations as well as the education emergency regulations are being abolished in their entirety. The security emergency regulations will be amended to still make provision for effective control over visual material pertaining to scenes of unrest. The restrictions in terms of the emergency regulations on 33 organizations are being rescinded. The organizations include the following: the National Education Crisis Committee, South African National Students Congress, United Democratic Front, COSATU, die blanke bevrydingsbeweeg in Suid-Afrika. The conditions imposed in terms of the security emergency regulation
Now, with the coming of democracy to South Africa, it all started in 1982, prior to the speech of de Klerk. I guess, remember I said, South Africa inile ka mtlase ha kgatello ya apartheid. But then, by 1982, it so happened to thome ho nna le di reforms of the apartheid policies. Now, from 1982, they started to be linked to show that there are changes. So in 1982, Nelson Mandela was removed from Robben Island to another prison. Now, because of this, there was a start of a new political party which became known as the Conservative Party. Now, the Conservative Party happened merely because there were members of the National Party. Remember, when I started the lesson, I said the National Party was the ruling party of South Africa, which imposed those apartheid policies. Now, because of the reforms that were starting to happen, and then the members started to see now the changes to their apartheid policies, they now withdrew from the National Party to the Conservative Party. Now, our road to democracy is going to start off with the speech of Frederick de Klerk, which took place on the 2nd of February 1992. From the previous video that we watched, that was Frederick de Klerk. He announced the release of some political prisoners. But most notably, he released Nelson Mandela. He also announced the unbanning of some political parties, such as the Pan-African Congress and the South African Communist Party. And he also announced that the government is intending to enter negotiations with the ANC to move South Africa to a democratic country. Now, with the negotiations, there then started to be the talks of talks, which were in a form of meetings. Now, this started for Groter Skill in Cape Town at Frederick de Klerk's residence in 1990. Initially, they were supposed to be held on the 11th of April 1990, but because of the massacre that happened, that took place for Sebokeng on the 26th of March 1990, where police opened fire for the protesters who were peacefully protesting and killed 14 people. There was a strain. Now the talks diatoma punale kohelo morao. But then on the 2nd of May to the 9th of May 1990, the National Party and the ANC, they then met for Now, they began to discuss the challenges of the negotiations. The first challenge was the Sebokeng massacre. And then they discussed, okay, this is now how we are going to move forward with our intentions, study negotiations. This was a success, and the minutes or the agreement that they signed became known as the Groter Skill Minutes. It moved on and continued the Pretoria Minute, which took place on the 6th of August 1990. Again, when it took place, there was an agreement between the two parties. Now, the NP, which is the National Party, it released more political prisoners, but most notably, it ended the state of emergency in South Africa and allowed for the return of more political exiles. Because now, during apartheid, those leaders, after committing acts of violence in South Africa, to exiles, again, Bachabelabo, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, and stuff like that, again. Now, in this agreement known as the Pretoria Minute, the National Party allowed those exiles to return back to South Africa. And the ANC in return, Yona, it officially suspended. It did not disband. To disband is to say, we officially call you off. Your services are no longer required. Again, the meetings were progressing well. Again, people were starting to see, well, okay, slowly but surely we are moving towards the promised democratic South Africa. But then something happened in July 19. Something happened in July, which was the Inkatha Gate scandal. This was the exposure to say the very same National Party, the very same government that you are in discussions with is actually providing weapons or secretly funding the IFP to commit acts of violence against your supporters. Again, in this the meetings, it was the ANC and the National Party. It was these two political parties which were meeting to discuss the fate of a democratic South Africa. But then there was an exposure. This is the second challenge. The first challenge, this is now the second challenge to the negotiations. Again, now this put a strain on the negotiations because now the ANC yet again started to question the government's intention or the government's commitment to the negotiations to say, we are communicating with you, we are having meetings with you to move South Africa into a democratic South Africa, but our supporters, our people, the blacks, are constantly being killed. Again, now the ANC, the NP, and the perpetrators, which were the IFPs, they came together in September 1991 and signed the National Peace Accord. Now, the National Peace Accord was a document that outlined a code of conduct. If I may ask, what is a code of conduct? Just raise your hand. What is a code of conduct? Yes.
An agreement, agreement that every South African has to hear law that every South African has to obey by.
It is sort of a rule, again, that outlines how you as a citizen or how you as an individual should carry yourself. Again, so now this document, it outlined a code of conduct that all political parties and security forces had to abide by. Now, this was showing progression, again, to the talks of talks, again, and then the official negotiations now started. This is where we see them go, CODESA 1, which is the Convention of a Democratic South Africa. It is CODESA 1. So it began in December 1991. 400 representatives from 19 political parties and organizations met. Again, initially it was the ANC and the NP, again, who were having discussions, again, discussing the challenges to say from here we move on to, from Pottersville we move to Pretoria. Again, now, they held the negotiations for the World Trade Center in Captain Park. Here they discussed issues such as a new constitution and a possibility of a power-sharing government known as the interim government. Prior to this, Remember, South Africa apartheid. Again, now in the discussions, they are now discussing a possibility of a power-sharing government, which was to be known as the interim government. The delegates that met, which include the 19 political parties and organizations, they now vowed their commitments to negotiations and signed the Declaration of Intent. Again, now the Declaration of Intent, it outlined these next pledges. Again, which is number 1, it is to
bring about an undivided South Africa with one nation sharing a common citizenship, diversity, united diversity, freedom, equality, and security for all irrespective of race, color, sex, or creed. A country free from apartheid or any other form of discrimination. Again, we move on to the second one, to work to heal. Yes, let's continue. To work to heal the divisions of the past. To strive to improve the quality of life of all people through policies that will promote economic growth and human development. To set in motion the process of drawing up and establishing a constitution that, among others, will ensure a united, democratic, non-racial, and non-sexist state. All peaceful, fair negotiations and free and fair elections to achieve a democratic South Africa.
Okay, so now there is progression. Okay, we can see that indeed South Africa is moving towards a democratic country, because even more political parties and organizations are now joining in the negotiations. Okay, there shows these political parties and leaders are now working together again to move South Africa to a democratic country. Now, something then happened yet again. In 1992, the Black now saw there are members from the National Party. They are moving to the Conservative Party that was formed. The Conservative Party by formulating. And what was the reason for the formation of the Conservative Party? It was against the National Party to enter the negotiations again. So they did not want South Africa to change from an apartheid state to a democratic country. Again, now members were moving from the National Party to the Conservative Party. Declared our consent to say, I am losing members. Now I am asking myself, is it that they are against the negotiation or yeah? Then he held the white-only referendum. Again, now a referendum, it is a yes or no vote. Ne? So, it is the white-only referendum. For some time, this received criticism in South Africa. It was criticized to say the whites only. Why do you think it received criticism from South Africa? Why was the whites only referendum criticized? Remember I said a referendum is a yes or no vote. Why was it criticized? Yes. Remember, they are discussing a democratic South Africa. And then body pledging, they said they are moving towards a South Africa that is free from apartheid and discrimination. But the very same leader, or signing the Declaration of Intent, now holds the whites-only referendum, where he only wanted the whites to vote. Again, but they proved successful because 68% of the white voters, they voted in favor of the continuation of the negotiation. That is when CODESA 2 was introduced. Okay? So the talks resumed in 1992, but then unfortunately, CODESA 2 was a failure, or rather, in strength. In June 1992, there was another massacre that occurred in Wibato. But before that, the delegates that met for CODESA 2, we want a power-sharing government, which is an interim government. They did not reach that agreement. So based on the terms that the interim government. So they failed to reach an agreement of the interim government. Then the Wibato massacre occurred. Again, when the Wibato massacre occurred, 46 people were killed. And the suspected perpetrators, or the people who were orchestrating this act of violence, were the IFP members. Kana the IFP members go Inkatha scandal again. Rabwa Habaper Babana guy go Wibato again. Now the ANC then again remember to Ghana the government, the very same government, it was secretly funding the IFP. It is doing the very same thing again. Come May 1992, again, yes. There is the Wibato massacre. People are killed again. Then the ANC officially called off the negotiations and they launched the program of rolling mass action. With the rolling mass action, this included the strikes that took place, the violence that continued in South Africa. Again, but two members, which was Cyril Ramaphosa from the ANC and Rolf Meyer from the National Party, they continued to meet, or they started to meet secretly. Again, in negotiations. Kana the ANC withdrawing again from the negotiations again, and they also refused to disband the MK, which is the armed struggle. Again, Rolf Meyer and Cyril Ramaphosa, they continued to meet, they kept on discussing and taking back feedback to their political parties to say this is what we discussed. Now their meetings proved successful because on the 26th of September 1992, the ANC and the NP agreed to resume the negotiation again, and the record of understanding was signed and demonstrated both parties' commitment to the negotiation. Again, now, because of the secret meetings that Cyril Ramaphosa and Rolf Meyer, there was the record of understanding. Again, now the negotiations started yet again. There were discussions. With the record of understanding, both the ANC and NP, they made significant agreements to ensure the progression of the negotiations. Again, the NP agreed to ban the carrying of traditional weapons and to erect fences outside migrant hostels. Again, this is where most of the ANC supporters again, the NP released more political prisoners. The ANC agreed to an interim government. Again, the government would be known as the Government of National Unity and exist for 5 years. Again, ANC agreed that all political parties that received 5% or more in the elections would be part of the Government of National Unity, which is the GNU. Again, the GNU was proposed by Joe Slovo and became known as the Sunset Clause. Now you understand the road to democracy, surely, but slowly but surely we are moving towards a democratic South Africa again. Now, in 1993, on the 10th, a member of the ANC and also a leader in the Umkhonto season, which is the armed struggle, who is Chris Hani, he was assassinated. Ne? So Chris Hani was a member of the ANC, and he was well known, again, because of the roles that he played in the struggle as well. Again, he was assassinated on the 10th of April 1993 by Jonas Wallace, a right-wing Polish immigrant. So this is the picture of the murderer, of the killer of who? Of Chris Hani. It was discovered that the pistol, which is the gun that Wallace used to kill Chris Hani, belonged to MP Clive Dubai-Lewis of the Conservative Party. Initially, Chris Hani was against the negotiations. He was against the ANC and the NP entering negotiations because according to them, as the ANC, because they could see what there are changes again, apartheid, we are getting the international response to say they want the apartheid policies to end in South Africa. We as the ANC can move ourselves to a democratic country. So he wanted the ANC to be the ruling party instead of them entering negotiations with the ANC. Okay? So now he was killed by Jonas Wallace, who used the pistol he learned from a member of the Conservative Party. Now the killing or the assassination of Chris Hani, it is a little for South Africa. Yeah, threatening the negotiations. There was ongoing violence, more especially in Johannesburg. People were dying, people were being killed, strikes, marches, stairways were taking place. Again, but on the 13th of April, Nelson Mandela addressed the nation. He was asked by who? By Frederick de Klerk, because he himself, he could see that he could not maintain the peace. Again, there was constantly people being killed, violences, whites, blacks are killing each other. There was chaos, again, due to the assassination of who? Of Chris Hani. Again, so Mandela addressed the nation and called for calm. Ne? So this is a video that we're going to watch. I think it's 3 minutes.
Saturday, 1993. Chris Hani lies dead in the driveway of his home. The country is plunged into mourning, anger, and fear.
The third major assassination attempt on Hani's life. This is the right enemy number one.
We are a nation in man. Our pain and anger is real. Yet we must not permit ourselves to be provoked by those who seek to deny us the very thing Chris Hani gave his life.
Millions of South Africans, black and white, through the country, and over the past they demonstrated their grief and anger at this horrendous deed.
So this is the unrest again that was taking place due to the assassination of Chris Hani.
Murdering SACP chief Chris Hani in April.
Clive Derby-Lewis calls himself an English-speaking Afrikaner. He says he bought the gun for the killing and gave the address. Janusz Walusz is a Polish immigrant. From Europe, he brought his family and a passionate hate for communism. Little is known about this man who volunteered to shoot Chris Hani at point-blank range. He shows no emotion. His eyes stare without expression.
The decision
election of Chris Hani was a turning point, I get, to the negotiation. Kana ngetamela hanyane, hona le violence, I get, hona le kusukwane, there was a failure to reach an agreement of an interim government. Now, because of Chris Hani's death and the violence that was taking place in South Africa, the ANC called for the immediate announcement of the general election, and a transitional executive council. The interim government was finalized. Now we are moving towards the first democratic elections, which took place in 1994. So because of the murder of Chris Hani, this was what prompted or pushed for a democratic South Africa. Again, you're not feeling that gas push again. Less than 20 million people voted. They went off smoothly and were declared fair and free. Nelson Mandela was elected the first black president, and he appointed Thabo Mbeki as the first deputy president and Frederick de Klerk as the second deputy president. The 27th of April is now celebrated each year in South Africa as Freedom Day. Again, this is the ballot paper that was used to vote. All the political parties were here. The IFP, the NP, the DP, ANC, and the leaders were there again. So Sahau Fela was to tick which one he wanted to take control or leadership of South Africa. Again, do we have any questions? Any questions? Do we have any questions? Do you understand the road to democracy? Yes. Kana, I said it is the road to democracy, and I gave you papers. Before you go through those papers, there is an activity, a quick activity that I want us to do. In the road to democracy, again, there were certain events, challenges that threatened the process here, the negotiation. Again, so now I'm going to draw a road. So it's a road that was filled with a lot of challenges, but if it is a way I can hold Tomaliet, well, it comma, we to work it to Hamo or Fella. So this is the road to democracy. Okay, so we start here. I want volunteers, ne? So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we're going to have volunteers who come and tell us who the road to democracy. Based on the slides that were shared, we are calling and then initially, so you come to the board, you take a marker, and from 1 you label the first event that started the road to democracy. Is he correct? Yes. Okay, so it was the prepared speech. And okay. The second one, yes. says number 2 was the release of Nelson Mandela on the 11th of February 1990. Number 3, is he correct?
Yes.
Okay. Number 3. Number 3. Number 3. You just can't take the marker and write. We'll correct you again. Okay. And she says Sebokeng massacre 26 March 1990. Is she correct?
Yes.
Next one, number 4. And she says number 4 was the Grootersdrift minute, the 2nd to the 4th of May 1990. Is she correct from the presentation? Is she correct?
Yes.
Okay, number 5. It's the Pretoria minute on the 6th of August 1990. Is she correct?
Yes.
Boys, anyone? The 6th event? Choose the color. Okay, July 1991, the Inca Kagame scandal. Number 7. Number 8. Number 8. Okay. So she said Padesa 1 okay, in December 1991. But there was an event that took place in between these two, I guess.
Yes.
Okay, let's correct her. Okay, then number 8. Number 8. Is she correct? And 20 December 1991, Cordesa 1. Okay. Another one. Are the whites only referendum? Is she correct?
Yes.
Okay. The next one. Okay. Cordesa. Okay, is he correct?
Yes.
Then what happened? Larna, yeah, one soul, no, which is the Kohakoha, nice to meet you. And you got you. Yes. Number 11. May I add Cordesa 2? Or Joseph? Go to democracy. We have to begin here. So I read a massacre occurred in the township of Wigato. Yep. Okay. Number 12. Number 12. The record of understanding. Is she correct? Yes. Number 13. Okay. The assassination of Chris Han. Is he correct?
Yes.
Okay. number, ne? This is our lucky number. It's our destination. Next. Okay. Okay. With the National Peace Accord. Is she correct? No. Any corrections? Anyone? Jose? Final destination. Okay. This is the marker. Oh, okay. Oh, you go try. Let's give it a chance. This is the marker. This is the one destination. So this is incorrect. Okay? The National Peace Accord. Ego guy, let's go. After Intergate Scandal, okay? There was the code of conduct. Okay? There was signed by the ANC, the IFP, and the NPP. Okay? Okay. Mandela addressed the nation. Is she correct? She's correct, okay? But then, this happened after the assassination of Chris Han, okay? And I said number 14 is our final destination. Okay? That is where all the challenges, all the threats, okay? All the meetings that were successful and unsuccessful initially led to this number 14. Okay? What was it? Yes, she's correct, but what was the number 14? Number 14. The last one. No, actually, I corrected it. It's this one. Okay. Okay, so that is our road to democracy. So you remember that this is going to be your essay question, okay? In all of your tests, your exams, and all of that, you use this to prepare. So there is an activity on the pages that I gave you. It's a class activity. Extra pages. Who has extra pages? No one. Eh? So the first one, it will be dates. There are dates, and there's a box. What you're going to do, you're going to indicate what happened on this day, okay? What happened on the next day, okay? And what happened on the next, and so on, okay? Up until the last event. Okay?